Welcome to A Fistful of Lenses, the home of real-world lens reviews. In this episode, we'll be taking a closer look at the Helios 44-2, a lens favoured by photographers and filmmakers alike, and used on the film Batman. More on that later. The optical construction is 6 elements in 4 groups. It has 8 aperture blades and a 49mm filter thread. The lens was made in the USSR and had an unusually long production run stretching from the 1950s through to the 1990s. My personal copy is from 1978. What was the world like in 1978? Well, let's take that trip together down memory lane. In 1978, the film Superman was released in cinemas. Britain banned the hunting of otters, and China lifted the ban on the writings of Aristotle. That's progress for you. Also making the news, a man who had trained his dog to play the trumpet on the London Underground said he went from barking to tooting in under an hour. Meanwhile, behind the Iron Curtain, the Helios 44-2 was being made in vast numbers. Hardly a rare lens, but certainly a well-known lens, famous even. So let's see what all the fuss is about. As always, the stills and video will be unedited straight out of camera, so as not to disguise the true character of this old optic. For this review, I'll be using the Sony A7R Mark III. So let's start with some images taken at the little market town of Llandovery in South Wales. And let's get a little more information about the Helios 44-2. The lens is a preset design that's basically a copy of a Carl Zeiss Biotar. Moving on to images taken at the old blacksmiths at St Fagans Museum. I feel the black and whites have a nice tonal range straight out of camera, and with a little editing I feel this is a lens that's perfectly suitable for monochrome images. But let's switch to colour before heading outside. As a side note, the museum at St Fagans is well worth a visit, with plenty to photograph, plenty to keep you occupied. But let's dig a little deeper now into the qualities of this lens. Let's look at how it handles colour. So what about the way the Helios handles colour? Many of the images have a subtle pastel quality to them, with fairly muted colours. Contrast is slightly low, and at f2, only the centre of the image is truly sharp, which I feel, along with the swirly bokeh, actually helps draw the eye into the centre of the shot. Obviously, as you stop down, the image will sharpen up. The bokeh, which is beautiful and unique, and a real strength for this lens, and that's something we will look at in greater detail later on. But first, let's take a little detour out to the Brecon Beacons National Park, because I thought it would be fun to take the lens that shot Batman to one of the locations in the film. So let's head to Henried Falls in the Brecon Beacons National Park. Henried Falls features as the entrance to the Batcave in the film The Batman. Interestingly, it's the highest waterfall in South Wales at 90 feet, with many beautiful walks in the area. Let's take a look out from behind the waterfall before taking a closer look at the bokeh of this lens. The lens is famous for its swirly bokeh, as you can see in the following shots. This effect is created when the bokeh bubbles at the edge of the frame become elliptical, giving the swirl effect. Technically, this is an optical flaw, a flaw that modern lenses have removed. The best modern lenses are virtually perfect, but perfection can be artistically boring. Helios is perfectly imperfect and anything but boring. So as we look at some more video shot with the Helios 44-2, what are my conclusions about this almost 50-year-old Russian lens? Well, my copy is from the Valdai plant, where something like 60% of the Helios 44-2s were made. Quality control on these lenses are notoriously poor, and it's a bit of a lottery as to what you get in. My lens needed the aperture blades cleaned as they were very oily, and the glass had fogged up. But fortunately, it's an easy lens to take apart and work on. But quality control issues aside, it's a lens that was made in its millions, and even 50 years on, it's quite plentiful and relatively cheap to come across. It won't win no beauty contests, but when it comes to photography, it's got it where it counts. The Helios 44-2 has been a fun lens to use, and if it's good enough to be used by Greg Fraser on the set of The Batman, which had a budget of around $190–200 million, then I'm sure it's good enough for my camera bag. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe and ring that bell. And then who knows, you might see me out there in the real world, snapping away happily with a fist full of lenses. Until next time, bye for now.